Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Let's Talk Assassin's Creed, your number one podcast for all things Assassin's Creed. In today's episode, we're going to be taking a discussionary look at the identity of Assassin's Creed. The series is over 14 years old now, and over 14 years, a lot of stuff has changed and had to adapt to certain flares and I've really forgotten the word, but trends in the gaming community. To discuss this topic, I am joined by two special guests. Kyle from the Mentors Guild.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Good to have you aboard. I'm also joined by a very good friend and one I've had some great discussions in the Discord server, SixKeys.
Hello.
Who's also a mentor. This is like more mentors chats. So, I think before we begin, I think the biggest question I would like to hear from both of you, with whoever wants to go first, what is your thoughts on the identity of Assassin's Creed?
I can go first.
Yeah.
So I think it sort of depends the way you look at it. Like some would argue the identity of Assassin's Creed is simply just like having an animus, the stealth, the parkour, assassinations, and all that kind of stuff. But if you go a bit deeper into the story, it's like the sort of philosophical arguments between what's right and wrong, the ongoing war between the Templars and assassins, and sort of witnessing the history through the animus, through the eyes of an assassin. And it's like that sort of conflict as the player, as you're playing it. And in terms of the gameplay, like the things I mentioned earlier, it's the sort of the parkour, the stealth, and assassinations. And I felt that all come together perfectly. Now it's sort of changed into a sort of a game that explores specific sort of eras in time, like the ancient Greeks and Vikings. You know, like sort of, because I feel like a lot of the games recently are sort of it's on trends, like the Vikings is very popular at the minute. So it sort of explores those sort of eras in time. And some of the assassin elements are sort of put to one side a bit, which is all good because it's interesting time periods, I would say. But yeah, it's more, I'd say the identity now is more about exploring famous moments in history. And yeah, that's my sort of first thoughts on it.
SixKeys, what's your thoughts?
It's a complicated question, right?
Yeah.
It is, but everything said in this topic everything is correct. There's no wrong answers. It's just everyone's interpretations.
Yeah, for me, it's like there are so many questions kind of rolled up into one. Like a lot of people see assassins as like a combination of brand elements, I would say. Like some people find it really important, you always need the hoods, the eagle imagery, the hidden blade, those kinds of things. Whereas for me, it's more about the social stealth element. And that includes the assassins actually blending into their environment, which means, you can't always have hoods, and maybe you can't even always have the hidden blade. It's more that's a complicated thing, because for some people it's really important to have those like superficial elements, and for me it's not so much about that. But then there's also the question of like, is Assassin's Creed more sci-fi, or is it more about history at its core? And for me, the answer is it's sci-fi first, history second, which I know a lot of people would not agree with.
I kind of think when you scan your mind back to Assassin's Creed 1, the very first thing you notice is trying to go into the Animus. There's a lot of glitches, you're getting pushed out, there's that really weird sequence where everyone has no faces. And to me, that just screams this is just a sci-fi history game where sci-fi is at the forefront, because it's not time travel. You're not going back in time to visit history. You're just making a virtual representation of history. So it's not real. It's just based on a memory that's just kind of been faked, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
and, yeah, and the sci-fi used to be kind of this ongoing thread that connected the games in the Desmond trilogy, and or you can't really call it a trilogy, can you? But I mean, like 5 games or whatever. Um, and I think that's kind of been lessened, or at least it was for a while, kind of pushed into the background. But the RPG games have kind of brought it back more to the fore with the like Isu DLCs and I guess the focus on the Isu story, which I've been really happy about personally.
Another question I wanted to bring up, and this is kind of a weird question, but a lot of fans look at Assassin's Creed and they want deep historical accuracy. And in a previous topic, me and Louise, who's from the Rookery Archive, did a discussion on history versus gameplay and how it's impossible to make the game 100% historical. But then it asked the question, if you believe the identity of Assassin's Creed is the parkour, the hidden blade, would it then be impossible in certain historical moments that parkour wouldn't be such at the forefront, or even hidden blades?
Oh yeah, of course. Like you only have to look at Valhalla. Parkour's not a main focus, is it? And
Yeah,
Vikings
exactly.
weren't really Vikings weren't really known for their parkour, were they?
Kind of make it
Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah, I was
yeah,
actually always kind of uh, against a Viking setting because I knew that, if we went to this era, then you would have to have like cities and houses that are not really suited for parkour. And yeah, since parkour was a really big part of the identity for me, then that
yeah,
I kind of knew that it was going in this direction.
yeah. I think most Assassin's Creed fans do miss like proper parkour.
I think parkour being Assassin's Creed is such a great feeling, and I'm terrible at it. So if it's not in a game, I don't feel like I'm losing out because I couldn't probably handle it anyways. But there was a good topic in the Sisterhood server about how we've come to love parkour as city based, all the buildings close together. But Assassin's Creed 3 did some really wonderful nature based parkour through the trees. And that's something they could have tried to implement more in Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla to keep that identity of Assassin's Creed through parkour.
Very true. Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, I've had this idea for a long time that they could do something more with now that they've introduced like the adrenaline slots. They could do something with that for parkour as well. That let's say performing certain actions in a row would give you an adrenaline boost, and the more slots you have filled, the more you could do these like more inventive parkour tricks, like I don't know, performing a role or doing like these really fancy jumps, like the base jump in Unity or something like that.
Yeah, that's a good idea as well. Like,
Or
I
like
think
those
Breath of the
chase
Wild.
breakers that you had in AC3, that Connor would jump into a window and run through the house, come out the other side.
Oh yeah, I like them.
Like there's a lot that they could do with this new system, but they've only been doing it for combat, not for the other two gameplay branches, stealth and parkour.
Yeah, it's because the games are so big now, isn't it?
Yeah, and
Well,
they have
the maps are so big.
Yeah, and they've kind of been putting the focus on combat for years now. Like, I understand that because one of the like really common complaints used to be that the combat was broken because you only had to like counter and that was it. Like it was really easy. But now I think they've gotten combat to a good place and they should start focusing on the other two branches.
For sure, I agree.
I agree. So another thing that I wanted to really discuss with you too, and I've touched base on it in a few previous episodes, but one of the big identities for me for Assassin's Creed is the assassin who uses his environment, tools, crafting, especially in Revelations where we could craft smoke bombs. I think you could put coins in it, different tactics to use the environment. But Origins did have sleep darts, but since then we've not had tools. Do you think that tools could play a big part of the identity for Assassin's Creed? And moving forward, should they add tools back into the series?
So would you say something similar to Unity though, where there's different paths for the assassination, or
Sort of. Touching base on how the identities become an RPG, a friend, iCrake, mentioned that a lot of these abilities, like smoke bombs, are becoming too reliant on the ability wheel instead of becoming tools that we can craft and use. So in the Ezio trilogies, you actually had a dedicated slot, and if you run out of them, you had to refill them. They became more of a tool of trade, and they kind of made the identity of an assassin be more of an assassin, where in the last two games they're more of an ability and they're not really assassiny, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'll get you. Yeah, tools. Yeah, I'd much rather tools than special powers, to be honest. Don't know what you think. I think that would be a good step forward to go back, but will they go back? I'm not sure.
What are your thoughts, SixKeys?
Oh, I would love for those kinds of tools to come back. Like the bombs that you mentioned in Revelations, they had several kinds of uses because you could mix them up. Like you had, I think, blood bomb. That like you could craft these bombs that you would throw them on enemies and it would explode blood all over them and they would get scared. And that was kind of like a like area control, I guess, that you could maybe scare some enemies away from a spot where you wanted to go. And then you had the coin bombs, which would attract civilians to an area to pick up the coins that you exploded all over the square, and that would stop your pursuers and stuff like that. Like they were great stealth tools. And the cool thing about them was that you had different kinds of shells for bombs. It's like you could have shells that exploded immediately on impact, or you could have sticky bombs that you could throw on an enemy and it would take like 5 seconds for it to explode. So you could kind of plan ahead. And that would be perfect for an RPG, which is kind of weird that they haven't brought it back yet.
Yeah, Revelations, some of them bombs. I thought that was one of the best things about Revelations, to be honest, making them bombs.
So it's fair to say that when we look at all the Assassin's Creed games, a lot of them have kept a similar identity of maybe it's not just the character themselves, but having tools, smoke bombs, parkour, as a sense of an identity. You know, you're an assassin, you can really run through buildings, you've got tools of the trade. And now it's an RPG setting. A lot of fans are worried that we're losing that identity. We're no longer becoming an Assassin's Creed game, we're becoming, and I don't like this phrase, but a Witcher clone. But to me, and I don't know if you agree, even though Valhalla is not perfect, it's far from it, but it does a lot at bringing a lot of the identity stuff back to Assassin's Creed, including those anomalies that are similar to the glyphs from Assassin's Creed 2.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing I would say about that is Eivor, I really liked Eivor, but she didn't really care, or he didn't really care about the bureaus and stuff, which I found really strange. I mean, we could go down this massive rabbit hole, but like, I didn't. And the DLCs might make a difference. Something might happen in the DLCs, although it's Wrath of the Druids and Siege of Paris. I don't know if there's enough room for any of that, but she didn't really seem to care about the bureaus, which were cool. Going to the bureaus were cool, but the character didn't care about them, I felt.
What do you think, SixKeys?
Sorry, what was the original question?
Sorry, I've got
Yeah, I've got off on one.
I started thinking about the bureaus and everything.
It's because the bureaus are epic, you know. As Kyle says, I would have loved it if she'd stopped for a while and was amazed by the architecture, and she didn't. But
Yeah.
the original question was that we've seen as we're discussing, we're seeing that a lot of the identity for Assassin's Creed is based on the character being an assassin through parkour and through tools. And a lot of the games have missed that. But even though Valhalla isn't perfect, do you feel that it is starting to touch base by bringing some identity back to the series through RPG?
Oh yeah, yeah. Valhalla is my favorite AC game since Brotherhood. So I would say yeah. For me, it was like it brought back the sci-fi. It brought back meaning to modern day. Brought back a lot of familiar characters like Sean and Rebecca. A lot of Easter eggs to the old games. It kind of felt like a love letter to the old games, to be honest, in many ways. And it brought back social stealth, even though I was not entirely pleased with how it was implemented, but they tried at least.
Yeah.
And of course, like you mentioned, the anomalies, which I thought were really cool. So I hope that they take this and kind of keep developing it. I don't think they have to choose between RPG versus the classic games. I think there is this merger that can work if they just keep pushing it instead of like starting the process all over again, like they tend to do.
I do agree. There's it's kind of hard to explain, but I've been playing Assassin's Creed since 2007 when it first came out, and within the first about week of playing Valhalla and being, I know it's not perfect, but there is a location in Norway where you can parkour along a cliff, and it feels so smooth and satisfying that I did turn around to a friend of mine and say, actually, this feels like an Assassin's Creed game because the stealth seems slightly more better than Origins and Valhalla and Odyssey, and the parkour environmental was a bit more engaging, but could have been better, if that makes sense.
I didn't really parkour at all, or stealth at all in Valhalla. Like the stealth, I tried it like once or twice. I thought I can't do this, so I just went into combat every time. It's
thing is,
pretty poor from me, but yeah.
Thing is, I've heard that a lot of fans have had problems with stealth, but it's inconsistent. Like for some people, detection is completely broken. So I can understand if that is the case, then those people would not want to play stealthily. Like in certain areas, like the restricted zones, for some fans, it's that guards immediately they don't have the step where they go from white detection to yellow zone to red zone. They immediately go to yellow or red, and that's just broken. And I've heard that complaint from many stealth players. But the thing is that for me, stealth worked very well. Like not perfectly. I did also have some problems, but it is a lot more consistent for me than it is for many others.
As I did discuss with iCraig in a previous episode, the only way I've ever got stealth to work, because you are right, I have this issue where once I'm detected, it's yellow then red. I've never seen a white detection yet. So how I've combated it is you have to archer from a distance all archery people because they've got insane Hawkeye skills. And once they're out the picture, running through the hedges and feign death ability and chain assassination, that just makes stealth better. But fans shouldn't have to rely on a certain way to do stealth. Stealth should be open-ended and more engaging, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So would you rather like massive crowds like Unity or something in between, or what we have now, sort of in Valhalla?
I would say what we have in Valhalla now, but take off shared detection from AI. It's shared detection that's ruining the stealth aspects of these games.
Yeah.
Yeah, the detection in general and the hive mind, as you say, the shared detection. Like that was a massive problem in AC3 when it came out.
I think I don't know if it was you, SixKeys, or someone in the Sisterhood server that mentioned this. I complained that an archery person could see me, and someone mentioned it's because a bird can see you. Like, a bird can see you, so guards can see you.
For real?
Yeah.
That's a new one.
They've got their own raven, have they?
It's apparently to do with this whole hive mind AI system that was built. So it seems that when one guard sees you, all the other guards can see you. But now the birds are also getting in on the AI. So if a bird flies overhead, it classes as an AI detection. So even though you're out of the archer's line of sight and the archer's still shooting at you, it's because it's either a civilian or a bird or above. So you're, it's like if you're in a haystack, you're supposed to disappear, like the old games, but you still get
Right.
shot by archers because if there's a chicken walking past, the AI basically saying she's still in there. I'm the chicken.
Traitor chicken.
Who got killed by a chicken, by the way? 'Cause I did. Straight, like, after the first, I think it's like 3 hours in, I got killed by a chicken. Can't believe it.
I will admit I've never been killed by a chicken, and I can't believe I'm saying this, so please don't laugh. But I was doing some really cool stealth. I was a ninja, a proper assassin, and then out of the dark, a chicken attacked me, and I screamed because I did not see the chicken in the grass with me. But apparently, bumping into the chicken caused it to attack me. I screamed.
Assassin chicken.
Yeah.
AC3 had the assassin turkey. Now we have assassin chickens.
It was scary. This is like one part of the Assassin's Creed identity I don't want. Killer birds. This isn't fun. I want to fight Templars. I want to fight the corruption of history, not animals with their own agenda.
That's a good point, actually. You mentioned the Templars. Like, everyone wants to see Templars back, surely. Like, proper.
No. Oh, I'm
No?
going to get in trouble here. I'm actually following what Darby said. I recently watched Darby's in-game discussion. Fantastic. I'll go find it. It's on YouTube somewhere. It's brilliant. And he mentioned something about how the assassins never have to change much to get where they are, but the Templars always had to grow to change who they are, especially because I beat Valhalla, so we can have spoilers here, but how the Order members end in Valhalla sets up the change for the Templars to come, and I want to see more change and growth into the Templars instead of just, here's the Templars that you know from the Assassin's Creed series. They're the same, nothing's different. Have fun. If that makes sense?
Yeah, I understand it. Yeah, I think what I meant was not like to move on from the Order of the Ancients, which we should be. We should be doing, considering what happened at the end. But yeah.
Oh, we should get some new snazzy Templar dudes.
Yeah, because I want to see that sort of feud between the Templars and Assassins again.
I mean, I'm just really excited about the modern day ending. Are we allowed to say spoilers here?
Spoiler warning. Now we're all clear.
Okay.
We're all clear.
How do we tell people that they are allowed to listen again? Well, okay, I'll keep it spoiler free. In modern day, they do say something to the effect of they want to take the fight to the Templars. And that's, I really think that part should come back as we had in Odyssey. We had like the fight with Otto Berg, but then for some reason Valhalla didn't even mention him at all. Like, what happened to him? Is he is he incapacitated? Is he dead? Nobody knows. I would like modern day Templars to come back in a big way. I want the modern day to expand and to actually have some action there.
Yeah, I agree. Apparently, Wrath of the Druids, you can play it after just doing like the first couple of arcs. So it's not. I don't think that's going to continue the story of the modern day.
Like I miss having a really cool Templar villain like Vidic Warren Vidic from the old
Yeah.
games. Like, he was such a badass
Yeah.
old man. Like, he had such a cool voice, right?
Yeah.
Like, just the way he would say condescending things to Desmond. Like, I loved that villain.
Desmond Miles. That's quite poor, sorry. Can you do it?
I can't. I'm not even going to attempt it.
What is a memory, Mr. Miles?
That's good. That's good.
Well,
Fair play.
SixKeys, you just actually stolen a point I wanted to make, so
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm going to cry. I'm on the joke.
I'm sorry.
In the theme of identity, there has been one identity crisis of Assassin's Creed that they haven't fixed. And that is 1, 2, Brotherhood and Revelations all seem to fit this canon timeline and everything seems to go well. Even in 3, they have that really cool recap. But by Black Flag to Syndicate, well, all the way to Odyssey actually, there's tons of time jumps with no physical explanations. Like, the most notable is what happened between Origins and Odyssey. There is no knowledge of what Layla was up to, and now she's a full Brotherhood member. So, in keeping with the theme of identity, one of the identity problems Assassin's Creed has is the modern day's never been cohesive in timeline, if that makes sense.
Well, it's a cohesive timeline in the sense that it does happen in real time. So, like, if it's 2021 in the game, then it's also 2021 in the real world. But you're right in that we don't always find out what the assassins have been doing between games. Like, they just say, oh, now we're in a cave somewhere. We got here 2 months ago, but we don't get anything more than that. Like, they don't fill in the details.
And I think Valhalla has got its saving grace with how Valhalla ended. Then, by technicality, any time jumps can just be sort of negated if they keep it properly, because there's no real connection at the moment of what's to come. Whereas how Origins left off with Layla meeting William Miles and then suddenly being in a Brotherhood cell herself, that was just confusing as heck.
Yeah, and we haven't seen William Miles since, have we? He's mentioned at the end of Valhalla.
Teddy Miles.
It's probably too expensive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Never.
Yeah, I thought we'd feature in Odyssey. But
Yeah, I really wanted to see that, like Layla actually meeting William, but
like properly like them. I don't know, there might have been a few emails or something mentioning him, but I wanted more.
And it was kind of a joke for a while that Layla's still waiting for that helicopter.
Yeah.
So, I think the final point I want to make is from Clockwork Raptor, who tweeted on the tweet from a few days ago, and I'm getting my words jumbled up, so that's nice. His tweet was, I welcome AC experimenting with different gameplay styles, but I think it tries to do too much at once. Rather than going back to the roots, I'd encourage spin-off games to try on different genres and keep the main line of titles more true to the original vision. And I really love this point of view because, as I did discuss way back in a free-to-play title, spin-offs are a great way to experiment, with... I've forgotten what the mobile game's called, so I'm probably going to get in trouble for that. But the other titles have done, the Chronicle series, the mobile series, they're all spin-offs with different mechanics, and they're a good way of experimenting, but going forward, they need to keep a set idea that maybe Valhalla created, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can understand that. So would you want it to be the next game to be a massive RPG? Would you want that?
I think for the next game and all the games going forward, and it's a weird analogy, but I'm going to stick to it. I think they should just copy and paste Valhalla's, not perfectly, but Valhalla's idea, because Valhalla's hit the wall between old and new, where it's managed to keep a lot of old stuff, but it's also brought a lot of new stuff to the game, so it's a good balance where if we looked at Odyssey, that's just blown the wall out the way because that's brought none of the old stuff back and just tried so much at once that it came off good, but it did leave a sour taste in some fans' mouths, if that made sense.
Yeah. Yeah, see, I think Assassin's Creed should be more smaller open areas, not a massive open world, and then have some sort of corridor linear missions. Some might be focused on stealth, some might be focused on parkour. You know, like what was it, the Romulus missions, maybe? Might got that wrong, but you know, where there was like parkour, there's proper parkour in the undergrounds, like Brotherhood or 2, I forgot what they were called, but I think we need a mixture of different missions than like 2 or 3 open areas, like smaller open areas. What do you make of that? So it's not one massive open world.
SixKeys, do you want to go first?
I kind of agree. Like, I would like these games to be smaller, but I would also like to keep the open world aspect because I still think that player approach is an important part of the identity. Like
Yeah.
that sometimes creates difficulties in like that. It's kind of a double-edged sword, I guess, because many people say, you know, they want the stealth to come back into focus, but at the same time, they didn't like that in like the Ezio trilogy. You sometimes had missions where being detected would force you to desync. Like the game wanted you to be stealthy, and it, like, if you got into combat, that was it. You know, you had to retry. And then I think, was it AC3 or Black Flag that got rid of that? And it's kind of like, on the one hand, it has diminished the importance of stealth to give players that freedom of approach, because now many people can just skip stealth. They don't even bother with it. They just go to combat because it's easier. But yeah, how do you find that balance? How do you keep these games stealth focused while also giving players the freedom of expression that they want?
I'm probably going to say something that's going to get my entire listeners charging me with pitchforks. So I kind of believe that they should just let player choice be center focus, because when there was a lot of debate going on about the games not becoming linear because of multiple choice and stuff like that, Darby made a tweet, and I forgot to pull it up, but he explained how in the older games there was a lot of linear. The games weren't actually historically accurate to the memory, because some people would stealth with Ezio through guards, some people will go in and just kill them all. So player choice has been at the center, and I've had my brother here when Assassin's Creed 2 first came out, and we've both done missions, DNA missions, and I've done them proper stealth like an assassin, and he's just had no care to the wind and just killed everybody. And I kind of think ushering people into the game that's like, no, let's focus on stealth, is going to, people will be like, well, I don't want to do much stealth. I like mine to be a hero that just bashes everyone's heads in. So I think the only best approach is what Valhalla tried to do, and that's how enemy encampments have layouts for stealth, but they also open it up to run in and kill everything. And that's why I think, as it was discussed in close to the beginning, how some players have had real fun doing stealth in Valhalla, but some have had more fun doing physical hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah, so do you think the stealth needs to improve though? So if it is a big open world, the next game, say in Japan, let's say, would you want the stealth to improve? Because I would.
I think stealth needs to improve, but improving stealth actually isn't that difficult. One biggest issue in Valhalla that I have criticized a lot is smoke bombs is attached to parry. Smoke bombs shouldn't be attached to parry. Smoke bombs should be a tool. And I just really think if they turn down the detection meter, take off a hive mind style so every AI has an individual reaction, and then give us more tools for like whistle darts and smoke bombs and maybe coin bombs, and maybe a social stealth that annoys me for photo mode but doesn't have a red outline on the character, then stealth would work really well. I don't think there's much to change, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I just didn't use it after the first couple of times. So I'd like to see it improve in the ways you just said. But will they do it?
Yeah, I think what you said about the tools, I think tools are really the key to making the games open-ended enough for both types of players. Like, you can still have people who just want to go in, rush in, and kill everybody. That's fine. And then you can have stealth players who can craft bombs or darts or, I don't know, and all kinds of tools that they can use to distract enemies, to create space, to draw crowds, to stop pursuers, stuff like that. Like, I really think they could do more with crafting and tools in these games.
Yeah, and like I confused that question earlier with Unity. What I was thinking about was there was different routes, there's different ways to kill, to assassinate your targets. Like, would you want to see that back?
Personally, no, because I've recently discovered, and it's actually annoyed me a little, that when you play Unity and the very first mission that gives you choice on how you assassinate your target, I assassinated it from the rooftops of the church because I thought that was the only way. And then when people are telling me that there's 10 different ways to do it, to me it kind of makes me frustrated that I'm not playing a linear way to do it. I like the open-ended approach, but I don't like an open-ended approach where it's, yes, but you can do it from this, and this is how it's meant to be done, and there's different memory corridors based on how you take them out. And to me, if it's open-ended, it has to stay as one linear memory corridor for the assassination, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, fair play.
Yeah, it's kind of difficult because on the one hand, the unique kills in Unity and Syndicate were really cool, but that also, it does kind of force you into doing them that way every time. Like, I feel like they wanted to combat the like, what do you used to have, like the 100% sync missions, like kill the target with a gun or it doesn't count as full sync, stuff like that. And I think they wanted to combat it in Syndicate and Unity by saying, okay, we're not forcing you to do it, but hey, here's an incentive to do it. Like, you get a cool cutscene that you wouldn't get otherwise. And yeah, on the one hand, it is cool, but it does kind of like, because it is a cool cutscene, then you want to do it that way every time. So I can kind of see it both ways.
And for people out there, thankfully I'm not one of them, but there is people out there who are completionists with Assassin's Creed games. They want to see every inch. To have a mission that, let's say, it takes 20 minutes to complete, and there's 5 unique cutscenes for 5 unique kills, that is a lot of replayability and too much in my eyes, where if you had freedom to take down that target from any place and still get the same cutscene, it feels more fresh and open-ended and fair to everyone. If that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
So, as we discussed, and there is a lot, Assassin's Creed's identity is impossible to put in precise words. You know, you can't just say that Assassin's Creed's identity has to be history, it has to be sci-fi, it has to be Assassin's vs. Templars, because as we've discussed in this episode, the identity can mean little things or big things like parkour and stealth, but it's also down to the individual player. So moving forward, if there's any aspect of the identity from Assassin's Creed that you would like them to keep or fix, what would it be?
Yeah, I think I've sort of mentioned it. The stealth and parkour are the two main things for me. Stealth and parkour, if they sort them out in a suitable setting, obviously it does depend on the setting, then I'll be more than happy. And have Assassins versus Templars again. That'd be cool.
Yeah, social stealth for me. Like parkour also. Parkour is also important, but it mainly works in big city settings. So it depends on the time period, I guess, what they can do with that. But yeah, for me, social stealth is like that's what initially drew me into the series in a big way, and that's I've been really happy that they brought it back in Valhalla. I just want to see them develop it and fix the detection and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I agree. And for the social stealth, Valhalla did a lot of cool improvements, and not perfect, where the social stealth wasn't just crowds, it was environmental stuff like making clay, sitting on a bench. You know, depending on time period, if there's a wagon outside, even picking up to push it into an area would class as social stealth because the guard probably just thinks you're a farmer bringing in the food. So
Yeah, I love that.
it there's a lot more than just crowds, if that makes. I feel like they tried to put too much emphasis on crowds, where you could even make social stealth movable by cart on the wayside, a potted plant on the wayside that you see other farmers bringing in, so you just put it on the shoulder and they just assume you're one of them. You know, it doesn't have to be big crowded people, but the environment can play a huge factor to social stealth, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
What you're talking about, they kind of did that with AC Liberation, where Aveline could dress as a slave and she could pick up a box and just carry it around, and that was like almost like it turned like the box turned her into a moving social circle of her own. Like she didn't even need other people around to hide amongst the crowd. She could just say, "Yeah, I'm just working here." Or she could pick up a broom and she would look like she's cleaning and stuff like that. Like I would like to see those interactive objects that kind of create the social stealth around you rather than always needing like these moving bushes.
That sounds amazing. For me, and this is a weird one, but the identity that stuck to me has always been after you play a game and you finish, you still sat there for hours theory crafting. And I just feel that Valhalla is the only game since, I'm going to say Black Flag, that I've actually sat down and wanted to theory craft what's happening next. And I think that's a huge part of Assassin's Creed identity is the theory crafting, what happens next, the questions that's left over. And I want to see that again in the future.
Definitely, yeah. I've loved that there's so many secrets that the fandom is still puzzling over, like runes hidden in places in the game, and the whole Excalibur thing, like how that can help you get a special weapon and stuff like that. It's so great seeing people come together and try to solve these mysteries.
I was the naughty one who watched Joe Raptor's glitch on how to do it. I didn't get it the easy but legit way because people are still trying to figure it out. I just kind of used the save glitch to get it before it's patched. I feel naughty.
Not allowed.
It's not, but you are right. When I watched people come together and solve it, I missed them days of Assassin's Creed, of going to school to see my mates who playing Assassin's Creed 2, and they giving me hand-drawn maps to find the glyphs. That
That's
was
so cool.
perfect. And I will admit, guys, I am 25, and there was no Wi-Fi when I was at school. We weren't sharing YouTube back then. We were sharing piece of papers.
It was infrared, wasn't it?
Yeah, and Bluetooth. My mate used to take pictures of his locations, send them via Bluetooth to us. Yeah, this is where I was. You find it there. Oh, I miss them days.
Yeah, and all the like story twists and turns with Lucy and Subject 16. Like people used to, like you say, theory craft around, like, oh my god, what's going to happen next? All the cliffhangers and stuff. I've missed that. I'm really happy that Valhalla is bringing those questions back.
I think the biggest cliffhanger for me had to be the ending to Assassin's Creed 3. When you see Desmond dead on the floor, I literally just thought, great, Assassin's Creed's gone because there's no way they can do it anymore. And what they did with Black Flag was actually really interesting. And it had me crafting a lot of theories, especially with the Animus becoming a game machine, what can it do? And then Unity and Syndicate kind of just, I lost it. It was a great game. I just didn't have much theory crafting behind it.
Yeah, and whatever
Yeah.
happened to Bishop anyway?
I thought she died.
Did she?
What?
I don't know. I thought somebody told me.
Nobody knows.
Somebody told me Sean
Has
Hastings
anybody
killed her.
clear?
Oh,
Yeah, I must admit, I don't know. It might have been a comic somewhere.
Yeah, probably.
I don't know. I just got sent an image of Sean Hastings in a fiery building with a twin electrical blade, so I just assumed he killed her.
What?
I don't know.
Got to be a bit of fan of it, isn't it?
Probably. Like, I will admit, on live on his podcast, I've only joined the Assassin's Creed community since I started the show over a year ago. So my knowledge of Syndicate Unity just comes off everyone's theory crafting and fan art. So half the stuff I know is probably wrong. It's scary. But, meeting people in that sister, the mental skill ever, just telling me these little details. I'm like, oh, so that's a fan art, not a legit thing that happened. I feel stupid.
Well, sometimes I don't even think all the writers necessarily remember every detail. So
True. Very true.
I've heard that some of the writers use Assassin's Creed Wiki to help them, and
yeah,
I will admit I've used Assassin's Creed Wiki a lot for research.
it's a great source.
It's epic. So
And that's pretty common actually in a lot of IPs. Like I still think we need a lore master, someone on the writing team who actually keeps track of all these details and story turns. But I also know that that's not really something that happens a lot in like movie universes and stuff like that either.
But when you've got
But
a loyal fan base like Assassin's Creed, we are the lore masters.
yeah,
Not me. I'm
and that's why you get fans complaining sometimes when it's like, "Excuse me, in this episode."
Yeah, I remember my first ever draft. I recorded it, I edited it, getting ready to send it out. I listened back and I realized that my lore was not 100% accurate. I had to go buy the essential guide just to get it right.
Funny
Well,
thing is,
just-
sometimes the guides are wrong too.
Yeah.
Don't tell me
They actually
that.
sometimes have mistakes in them.
Oh, now I'm scared.
Yeah, for real, the wiki is the most accurate source.
I'm terrified someone's gonna be like, excuse me, let's talk, but that essential guide, page 26, is wrong. I'm just like, don't shoot the messenger. I paid 20 quid for this book. It's supposed to help me. I don't have all day to Google. I think I'm just gonna go live on the wiki. So,
I wonder
carry on.
who the most knowledgeable fan is, like knows everything.
Google.
It's got to be someone who knows absolutely everything from the comics and novels to the games.
I can name drop two people that I always rush to for help because their lore knowledge is fantastic, and that's Andrew, who's known on Discord as Mr. Nose from the Visions of the Past podcast. His lore knowledge is amazing, and Louise, the nerdy archer who runs Rookie Archive, her lore knowledge is amazing, and her history knowledge is spot on.
Yeah, they're both. Yeah, I've listened to them both before. Good listen. Yeah, it might be one of them. You might be right.
They're the secret lore keepers.
Shout outs to them too.
Yubi, please hire one of these people.
Yeah.
I would love to see them to work with Ubisoft. I think they'll be able to shape the lore into some streamlined details. So this is all we've got time for tonight. I actually don't know how long we've been recording for because I forgot to start my clock. Silly me. So this episode has been really good discussion for the Identity of Assassin's Creed, and I think it's just fair to say that Assassin's Creed has grown over 14 years, and to hammer down an identity could possibly limit the series going forward. So it's probably best to keep some core ideas from parkour and stealth and mystery and sci-fi, keep them 4 core elements, tweak them so they work really well, and I think you've got a really good Assassin's Creed identity sorted for the future. Oh, and also Templars versus Assassins, because I kind of do miss my Assassin-y dudes. I miss rooftops. Thank you all for joining. Big thank you to Kyle and SixKeys for taking part.
Thank you. It's been
Thank
great.
you. It was fun.
I will have to drag you all on because whoever's a guest on the show once seems to get dragged back for multiple times.
Sweet. Looking forward to it.
If you guys would like a chance to join the show or you want to see a topic discussed, then please just message me on my email, Assassin's Creed Let's Talk at gmail.com, or on Twitter, AC Let's Talk. You can check out Kyle's and SixKeys' Twitter and keep up to date with everything they're talking about and the Discord server on Twitter. All the links will be in the descriptions. So thank you everyone, and we'll see you next week.